It's 48 degrees Fahrenheit, 11 p.m. This is WVUT-TV, a broadcasting service of Vincennes University. I'm John Windover, and this is the late edition for Tuesday, November 4th, 1986. The weather for tonight, rain most of the night with a low around 50. Tomorrow, cloudy and cool with a chance of rain, the high in the mid to upper 50s. In the news this evening, some major Republican victories in today's Knox County election. An Edwardsport woman was seriously injured in an armed robbery yesterday, and 2 people were injured in a traffic accident north of Vincennes this morning. Those and other stories coming up on the late edition. Republicans made some major gains in Knox County's election today, taking the 2 top law enforcement posts, and the race for the county recorder's office may be too close to call. In the race for Knox County prosecutor, former Pike County prosecutor Jerry McGahee defeated longtime local attorney Scott Foncannon by a margin of over 700 votes. It was McGahee 7,691 to Foncannon 6,957. McGahee credited his victory to his prior experience as a prosecutor and the voters' desire for a change.
Well, probably so. I had the trial experience, and then I had results to point to, and I think the people looked at that. And I think also the people wanted a change of administration. They want a change of direction. The election of the sheriff and the election of the prosecutor seems to me to be a very clear mandate of the people that they want to change in direction of the criminal justice system in Knox County.
Democrat Foncannon told reporter Tony Cloyd that his defeat may have been due to dissatisfaction with the current Democratic prosecutor.
Well, and seeing the results, it seems to indicate that that's what it is, what it might have been. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to really analyze it, but initial thoughts would seem to indicate that.
County Sheriff's race, Republican Don Kirkham handily defeated Knox County Sheriff's Deputy Robert Hatton by over 1,500 votes. The final unofficial vote tally, Kirkham 8,193, Hatton 6,679. Kirkham, a former Indiana State Police trooper, believed today's victory was in response to his campaign pledge to return the Sheriff's Department to the people of Knox County.
Well, Sharon, my whole campaign has been ran on the promise of returning the Sheriff's Department to the people. And that's what I want to do. As an Indiana State Police officer, we served everyone. And, it took a multitude of people to elect me. And I'm thankful to everyone. And, I'm going to be a service to young and old, as I put in my ads, Democrats, Republicans, whomever. And I think that's what the Sheriff's Department's all about, is a service. And that's what I want to be. I want to be a service. I want to be impartial. And my door will be open to anyone that wants to come in and have a chat, talk over their problems, and I think we can work with the people, and I think we can be a great service to the people.
Meanwhile, at Democratic Party headquarters, Sheriff's candidate Robert Hatton told WVUT's Tony Cloyd he was stunned by Kirkham's large margin of victory.
The only thing I can think of is, Don's got 23 years experience. They was looking at the 23 to where, I had the 11, and, they was looking at a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. So you're thinking experience, you're saying experience may be the factor?
I think so. I think, Don's 23 years on the Indiana State Police has had a lot to do with it.
The sheriff's race had been expected to be a close runoff since neither of the candidates went into the race with the advantage of being an incumbent. Sheriff Fred Huffman chose not to run again because of health problems. In other Knox County races today, Republican County Clerk O.K. Anderson won re-election over Democrat William Lenahan by 1,100 votes. Democratic Auditor Betsy Brand won her first full term by defeating Republican Robert Menke by a hefty margin of 3,000 votes. A close race for county recorder. Democratic incumbent George Thompson defeated Republican newcomer Lisa Clark by only 76 votes, and Clark says she is considering whether to ask for a recount. Knox County Commissioner from District 3, Gordon Steinbaugh, will return to office, defeating Republican challenger Clifford Chatton. In Knox County Council, District 1, former County Commissioner Jimmy Parrish returns to elective office. Parrish, a Democrat, defeated Republican John Waters. Democrat Stephen Talbert won the County Council District 2 seat over Republican Robert Slayton, and for County Council District 4, incumbent Democrat Ralph Patton easily turned back a challenge from Republican Glenn Gauger. Early returns in Indiana's 8th District Congressional race seesawed throughout tonight as Rick McIntyre and Frank McCluskey waited to see if there would be a replay of their 1984 encounter. Their race 2 years ago turned out to be the closest congressional race in history and was ultimately resolved by Congress. When 12% of the vote counted tonight, McIntyre was holding a 2,000 vote lead, but his aides weren't making any predictions. McIntyre campaign consultant Larry Halloran said the early returns were coming in from the northern part of the district. His biggest concern was in the heavily Democratic southern part, including Vanderburgh County with its 157 precincts. McCluskey campaign manager Chris Sauter said the incumbent felt optimistic after canvassing the district today. Here in Knox County, unofficial returns show McIntyre the favorite with 7,737 votes compared to McCluskey's 7,308 votes. A 65-year-old Edwardsport woman remains in serious condition at Deaconess Hospital in Evansville following the robbery of the Edwardsport Lumber Company late Monday afternoon. Elthelda, or Betty Fulford, was struck on the back of the neck with a heavy object in the robbery, which occurred around 5 p.m. Police say the object may have been the butt of a .22 caliber Magnum rifle taken from a shelf in the store. A nursing official at Deaconess Hospital says that Fulford is in the intensive care unit, being treated for injuries to her neck and head. Knox County Police say they received a report of an armed robbery at the lumber company around 5:40 p.m., about 40 minutes after it occurred. An unknown amount of cash was taken in the holdup. The suspect's vehicle is believed to be a 1985 Chevette or Citation in beige in color with an Arizona license plate. The Vincennes Meter Department reports a theft of several parking meters in the 500 and 600 blocks of Main Street. Also stolen was a ticket box from the parking lot at 1st and Vigo Streets. Meanwhile, Richard Nims of 1339 North 3rd Street says that someone broke into his apartment between October 13th and yesterday and stole several items, including 2 electric guitars, an amplifier, some speakers, a microphone, and a leather coat. The value of the items was estimated at $1,200. 2 people were injured in a 2-car accident late this morning on Old State Road 67, about 1.5 miles north of Vincennes. 29-year-old Brenda Ford of rural Bruceville told Knox County Police she was southbound on Old 67 around 11 o'clock this morning when an unknown white car pulled into her path from a side gravel road. Ford slammed on her brakes and her car fishtailed into the path of a northbound car driven by 20-year-old Stephen Evans of 62 State Road 67, Vincennes. After impact, the Ford car spun around several times while the Evans car went off the east side of the roadway. Evans was admitted to Good Samaritan Hospital in Vincennes for observation with multiple injuries. Ford was treated and released. 2 small children in the Ford car were not injured because they were wearing child restraints. An Oaktown woman was admitted to Good Samaritan Hospital yesterday following a 2-car accident on US 41, 2.5 miles north of Emerson. Nursing officials say 37-year-old Charlotte Hill is in satisfactory condition with injuries to her head, neck, and shoulder. She was a passenger in a car driven by 33-year-old Billy Hill of Oaktown. Knox County Police say Hill's car was struck in the rear by a vehicle driven by 18-year-old Sean O'Malia of Indianapolis. O'Malia said he reached down under his seat to remove a pop can that was causing problems for his feet, and when he looked up, he crashed into the Hill car. The accident occurred around 9:15 Monday morning. Vincennes University's 35th annual Alumni Chili Supper raised an estimated $2,000 last night, according to Director of Alumni Programs Brenda Weber. She said there was an estimated 1,500 people at the event, which was held from 4:30 to 7 p.m. in Green Auditorium. According to a spokesperson for the VU Alumni Association, all the food was donated by alumni and friends. The proceeds will go for scholarships for VU students. A late edition news time is 9 minutes after 11.
This is Glenda Griffith with Edward D. Jones and Company, members of the New York Stock Exchange, bringing you your daily stock market report. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was off 1.83 to close at 1892.43. The transportations were up 3.12, and the utilities showed a loss of 0.28. Volume on the New York Stock Exchange was over 163 million shares traded. There were 874 issues that advanced and 690 that declined. New York gold was up $5.25 at 409.50, and silver was up 3 cents at $5.74. The most active issues on the New York Stock Exchange were Philadelphia Electric, 23 5/8 down 1/2. Hanson Industries, 14 5/8 up 1/8. Gillette Company, 51 7/8 up 3 3/8. Goodyear Tire and Rubber, 48 3/8 up 1/8. And General Motors, 73 3/8 up 7/8. Here's some closing stock prices of local and regional interest. Ameritech, 132 3/8, no change. Johnson Control, 56 7/8, no change. Public Service Indiana, 18 5/8 up 1/4. Walmart, 45 down 3/8. Texaco, 35 5/8 up 1/2. Amoco, 66 3/4 up 3/4. Tenneco, 39 5/8 up 1/4. J.C. Penney, 80 1/4 up 3/4, and Wendy's closed at 12 unchanged. The stock market was hesitant throughout most of the day, as many traders were waiting for the outcome of the elections before making commitments. Prices recovered from morning losses, and the market closed close to its day's high. Most blue chips were fractionally higher, with General Electric closing at 78 1/2. The auto industry reported lower U.S. car sales for late October, but the stocks closed mixed. General Motors gained 7/8 to close at 73 3/8, while Ford lost 7/8 to close at 58 3/8. This is Glenda Griffith with Edward D. Jones & Company, bringing you this report.
The weather for the Wabash Valley for the rest of tonight: rain most of the time, temperatures remaining around 50. Tomorrow, cloudy and cool with a 50% chance of rain, mainly in the morning, the high in the mid to upper 50s. And tomorrow night, cloudy with a 30% chance of rain, the low in the upper 40s. Currently, it's 48 degrees at WVUT. Today on our weekly ASCS report, we're going to be talking about substitution and details on the feed grain program. Pam Davis, the county executive for the Lawrence County, Illinois ASCS, is here with me today. Pam, one thing we're going to talk about as part of substitution is called pick and roll. Now, last week we had Swamp Buster, Sod Buster, and this week we've got pick and roll. Where do these names come from? They have a special office that makes up funny names for programs?
At least, John, these are not initials, so we don't have to figure out. We can just use the whole words.
Use the whole word.
But pick and roll, most farmers are familiar with, and this is part of the eligibility that they participated in last year's set-aside program to be eligible for. But pick and roll is where the producer comes in and he takes out a loan on his harvested eligible 1986 corn, and then he has certificates through advance payments, or he has purchase certificates, and he brings those into our office. He redeems his loan with those certificates. The loan is paid off, and then that grain is his to sell on the market. Now, we have been doing pick and roll for quite some time, and we will continue to do pick and roll. This is where the producer comes in and we give him $1.94 a bushel, and then he redeems it at the redemption rate, which is out of the Evansville terminal price for our area. And in our county, it's been running $1.30 to $1.50 right now. So he's redeeming $1.94 corn with $1.50 redemption rate. Now, something we did last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday was called pick and roll substitution. And this is where producers had their grain stored locally, either on the farm or in an approved warehouse locally. They purchased grain out of a North Dakota warehouse, and that North Dakota warehouse issued a warehouse receipt. The producer substituted the North Dakota grain for the locally stored grain, and he received the loan rate at the North Dakota County rate, which normally was $1.83 a bushel. However, the redemption rate in North Dakota is quite a bit lower than ours in Lawrence County. It ran last week from 80 to 90 cents a bushel. So instead of paying off $1.94 with $1.50, he was paying off $1.83 with like 90 cents. So this was quite an income for the farmer, and of course we got the checks out immediately, and it really helped the economy immediately in Lawrence County. But that was called to an end. The USDA quickly announced that as of 5 o'clock Friday we would no longer be doing the pick and roll substitution with distant elevators. So we can still do the pick and roll, the basic pick and roll with local warehousemen, but we will not be doing any more substitution out of North Dakota or other states. Now, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week, we put 154 corn loans out in the county with this pick and roll substitution for 2,333,138.63 million bushels, and at $1.83 that comes to about 4.5 million bushels that we put out in loans in 3 days. So we were rather pleased, and we hope that the farmers were taken care of timely. We worked about 6 a.m. to midnight those 3 days. So by Friday afternoon, we were getting a little crazy.
Weekend.
Right. So that's basically what the pick and roll substitution amounted to. We will be making some advance payments for the 1987 program in certificates. So if people wish to do the regular pick and roll with those certs, we'd be more than happy to do that with their loans.
Okay. We also wanted to spend some time today, Pam, on some details on the feed grain program.
As we previously announced, the wheat program, most of those details are out, but producers can plant 72.5% of their wheat base, and for doing that, they leave out 27.5% for set-aside. Their projected deficiency payment is $2.10 a bushel for wheat, and they can get 40% of that in advance. Of that 40% advance, half will be in pick certs, pick certificates, generic certificates, and the other half will be in a check or a cash payment. There has not yet been a diversion program announced for wheat, but we will anticipate that soon after the wheat is planted. For corn in 1987, there are two basic programs a producer can enroll in. He can either plant 80% of his base and leave out 20% of his base for the 303 target price protection, which would make him eligible for deficiency payments and loans. Or he can plant 65% of his base, leave out 35% of his base, and he would be enrolled in the basic 20% set-aside plus the 15% diversion. This will enable him to be eligible for the projected $1.21 deficiency payment, the loan rate on corn of $1.82, plus he would get a direct payment of $2 a bushel on that 15% diversion that he is enrolled in. So they have one or two options to go into this year. On their advance payments, they can request 40% of the projected $1.21 deficiency payment, half in pick certs, half in cash, and of the $2 per bushel diversion payment, they can get 50% of that in advance, 50 in pick certs, and 50% of that in cash payments. November 17th is the beginning of sign-up for the 1987 feed grain program. Hopefully we'll have the software for the computer so we can get the advance payments out just as quickly as possible. I do want to remind producers, as we have talked about in the past, that cross-compliance is in effect this year. If you expect to participate in the 87 feed grain program, you cannot exceed your wheat base in planted wheat acres. If you have no base, that is considered a zero base, and you cannot plant wheat on that farm and expect to sign up and be eligible for feed grain program benefits.
So we need to bear that in mind.
That's right.
Okay. Pam, thanks very much for joining us once again.
Thank you, John.
Pam Davis from the Lawrence County, Illinois ASCS. For the evening edition, I'm John Windover reporting.
Good evening, everyone. The Indiana Pacers defeated the Philadelphia 76ers 125-121 in double overtime tonight. Veteran John Long scored a career-high 44 points, including all of his 11 of his team points in the second overtime. Long scored the first 5 points of the final period as Indiana snapped an 8-game losing streak to the 76ers, giving the Pacers a 119-114 lead with 3 minutes 50 seconds left. Charles Barkley, who led Philadelphia with 34, pulled the 76ers to within 2 before Long hit a 15-footer with 1:46 remaining. Elsewhere around the league, the Bullets beat the Nets 102-101. Jeff Malone's 20-foot jump shot with just 4 seconds to go was the capper in that one. Randy Whitman chalked up 28 points, and Kevin Willis chipped in 23 as Atlanta beat Milwaukee 107-98. There was some bad news for the Hawks in that one. They lost star forward Dominique Wilkins in the first quarter with an ankle injury. It's not known how serious that is. Also winning tonight, Dallas over the Los Angeles Clippers 118-86, and the Bulls moved to 3-0 on the young season with a 111-104 victory over San Antonio. Lieutenant Governor John Mutt says Indiana is prepared to offer the Chicago White Sox an incentive package to relocate to the Hoosier State. Mutt says the state line doesn't make a whole lot of difference since the sites he's proposing in northwestern Indiana are in the Chicago television market, and that's what's important to the professional sports franchises. Mutz, who heads the State Department of Commerce, says he is negotiating with 6 possible sites in Lake, Porter, and LaPorte counties. The Lieutenant Governor says he can guarantee a 40% increase in season ticket sales for a period of 5 years and is negotiating to get a working capital loan at below market interest rates. Mutz first began pitching his plan with an ad in today's Chicago Tribune. He says another will appear tomorrow. The White Sox are considering abandoning their home at aging Comiskey Park and moving to the suburbs. Voters in Chicago's Addison area are voting today on a proposed 45,000-seat stadium there. On Election Day, the Baseball Writers of America have announced that Boston's John McNamara has been voted American League Manager of the Year. Marv Schneider has more.
Red Sox manager John McNamara has been voted American League Manager of the Year by the Baseball Writers. It was a close election. McNamara had 13 first-place votes, one more than Bobby Valentine of the Rangers. McNamara edged Valentine by 5 points in the total balloting. McNamara, who led the Red Sox to the American League pennant, has been a big league manager for 13 years. This is the first time he's won the award. Gene Mauch of the Angels finished third. He had 2 first-place votes. The only other first-place vote went to the Indians' Pat Corrales. Lou Piniella of the Yankees finished 5th. Marv Schneider, New York.
The Chicago Bears have activated quarterback Doug Flutie, who signed with the NFL team last month. Coach Mike Ditka would not say if the 1984 Heisman Trophy winner will play this Sunday in Tampa. Regular Chicago quarterback Jim McMahon has already been scratched for the Bucs game, meaning either Steve Fuller, Mike Tomczak, and Flutie will get the nod. Flutie set an NCAA record for total offense with 11,317 yards during a 4-year career at Boston College. His pro career has consisted of part of 1 season with the USFL's New Jersey Generals. All signs in the Bay Area are pointing to Joe Montana starting for the San Francisco 49ers this Sunday against St. Louis. However, Niner coach Bill Walsh does say his all-pro signal caller must first go through a week of practice before getting the okay. Montana played in only the season opener and has spent the last 7 weeks recovering from disc surgery. It has been feared the back injury might end his 8-year career. In another announcement from the 49er camp, the club cut running back Wendell Tyler, who has been plagued this season with knee problems. The 31-year-old Tyler came up with the Rams in 1977 and has been with the San Francisco since 1983. Indianapolis Colts coach Rod Dowhauer is faced with the worst start in the history of the NFL franchise, and he says he's making some lineup changes to provide rookie quarterback Jack Trudeau and the Colts running backs with better blocking and pass protection. Trudeau was sacked 7 times for losses of 49 yards in Sunday's 24-9 loss to Cleveland. Since he replaced the injured Gary Hogeboom in the second game of the season, Trudeau has been sacked 21 times. Indianapolis had possession of the ball 7 minutes longer and had 20 more plays than the Browns, but Dowhauer said the Colts just did an inept job offensively. Indianapolis finishes a 3-week homestand Sunday against New England, which beat the Colts 33-3 in the opening game of the season. The newest Indianapolis Colt says he's appalled by the losing attitude among some of his teammates. Defensive back Dexter Clinkscale, who just signed with the Indianapolis last week, says some of the Colts have gotten used to losing after going through their first 9 football games without a win, and he thinks that's pathetic. Clinkscale, a starter the last 3 years with the Dallas, has yet to play it down with the Colts. Still, he says he'd like to see the team get a positive attitude going by the end of the season. The Gator Bowl would like to match top-ranked Miami of Florida against number 2 Penn State in a national championship game. The USA Today quotes Gator Bowl President John Bell as saying his contest will have the ability to offer the Hurricanes and Nittany Lions $2.2 million each. As of now, the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville is slated for Saturday, December 27th. However, Bell has told the newspaper the date could be switched to New Year's Day or the day after. The 1985 Gator Bowl offered $750,000 to each participant. Now, says USA Today, additional sponsorship will allow for the increased payoffs. Last month, the Fiesta Bowl announced it would offer upward of $2.2 million a team if Miami and Penn State, both independents, could meet for the national title. Both schools have all 8 of their games so far this season. 2 University of Illinois football players arrested a campus disorder have been charged with misdemeanor battery and suspended from the team. Rodney Lynch and James Finch, both 22-year-old senior linebackers, were released on recognizant bonds yesterday after spending the night in Champaign County Jail. They were charged in Champaign County Circuit Court in connection with a confrontation early Sunday at the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity house. Lynch, a 235-pound linebacker from Oakland, California, has been a part-time starter this season. Finch is a 220-pound linebacker from Indianapolis who has been a starter this year. Coach Mike White hasn't indicated the duration of the suspension. Lynch and Finch each were charged with 3 counts of battery for alleged striking 3 people with their fist. Lynch also was charged with a 4th count of battery for alleged striking a man with an axe handle and 1 count of criminal damage concerning destruction to a wall at a window at the fraternity. And that's a look at sports, John.
Okay, thank you very much, John. We have 2 Johns on the desk tonight. Still to come on the late edition, our farm reports and the Vincennes area weather. Stay with us.
This is Karen Hazelman with Cargill Elevator in Vincennes with the Chicago grain future closes for November the 4th. December wheat closed at $2.90 3/4 up 1 1/2. March $2.72 3/4 up 2. May $2.56 1/4 up 1. July $2.44 up 1 1/4, and September $2.45 1/2 up 3/4. December corn closed at $1.75 1/4 unchanged. March $1.84 up 3/4. May $1.89 up 1/2, July $1.91 up 1/2, and September corn $1.92 up 1 1/4. November beans closed at $5 3/4 down 1/4. January $4.99 1/2 down 1 1/4. March $5.03 3/4 down 1 1/2. May $5.07 3/4 down 3/4. July $5.10 3/4 up 1/4, and August $5.09 down 1/2. And September $5.50 down 1. And thank you from Cargill Incorporated.
Vincennes producers today, the hog market is 75 cents higher. 220 to 250 pound butchers $51.75. 250 to 260 pound butchers $51.25. 260 to 270 pound butchers $50.50. 210 to 220 pound butchers $50.50. Sows 43 to 48, and butcher boars 39 to 42. At Indianapolis, hogs 500 barrels and gilts moderately active 25 cents to 50 cents higher, topping at 54.25. Sows moderately active steady to $2 lower with a top of 53. Cattle 10.50, slaughter steers and heifers steady. Cows mostly $1 lower and bulls steady. Steers topped at 62.25 and heifers at 60.75. The Indiana direct hog market today at 70 yards and plants, barrels, and gilts 50 cents to $1 higher with a top of 53.25. Demand good, sow steady, topping at 48. At the terminals, 11 market estimated receipts of hogs were 22,800, which is 12,400 less than a week ago. At eastern terminals, US 1 to 3, 200 to 240 pound barrels and gilts were selling at a top price of 54. 11 market estimated receipts of cattle were 15,000, which is 800 less than a week ago. Slaughter steers topped at 63.50 and heifers at 62.50. Cold rain will jeopardize the health of young animals exposed to the elements tonight. Dry shelter and fresh bedding will be important to reduce respiratory stress and infections. Livestock movement outdoors will further be limited this week by softened ground and the threat of trampling damage to grasses. Those grasses will continue to develop in southern areas where the low temperatures will mostly be in the 40s the rest of the week, and the highs may peak in the lower 60s again by Friday. I'm Doug Haar reporting.
The Vincennes area weather forecast for the remainder of tonight: rain is likely with the temperature remaining around 50. Tomorrow, cloudy and cool with a 50% chance of rain mainly in the morning, the high in the mid to upper 50s. And tomorrow night, cloudy with a 30% chance of rain, the low in the upper 40s. Currently, it's 48 degrees at WVUT. And that's our late edition for this Election Day, November 4th. I'm John Windover for John Barrick and the entire evening edition, rather late edition news team. Thanks for joining us, and good night.